Hey, before I kick off the podcast, I just want to shout out Next Door Clothing. Next Door, a clothing brand based out of Bondi in Sydney. They're making really nice jeans and shirts and hats. So go and check out their full range at nextdoorsydney.com. They're also artists, so you can go and check out a range of art. They put on rad parties, and I love what they're doing. So nextdoorsydney.com for the full range.
I'm having a good time.
You are?
Yeah.
I can tell.
We are rolling.
Terrible Happy Talks. Terrible Happy Talks. Terrible Happy Talks. Terrible Happy Talks. Today's guest is Mike Millin. Mike is a father, surfer, and entrepreneur. Mike is the founder of the unique and progressive recovery retreat Further. Mike grew up surfing in California and was a sponsored pro free surfer for the skateboard and clothing brand Zoo York at the age of 21. Through his early 20s, Mike travelled the globe surfing and gaining exposure for the brand. These days, when Mike is not spending time with his daughter Maya or working on the development of his rehab program, he can often be found chasing extra large Indonesian swells around the archipelago or just charging some of his local surf breaks like Padang Padang and temples at Uluwatu. Mike is soft-spoken in his approach, powerful in his drive to help others, and continually focused on being the best version of himself. Today, Mike is with me to discuss his experiences, challenges, and hopes for the future. Mike Millin, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Shannon.
How are you, brother?
I'm good.
You good?
Thank you.
How's your day been?
It's been it's been a pretty mellow one.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
Talk me through it. What'd you get up to? Like, what's a day in the life of Mikey like?
Well, I woke up and I went to a meeting.
Okay.
A recovery-based meeting, 12-step program, something I've been involved with for 10 years now. Super powerful and helpful. In many ways.
Powerful in what way?
Well, for me, it I'm a recovering alcoholic, and it's saved my ass 100%. When I was around 24, I hit a bottom with alcohol and drugs, and I had nowhere to turn, and somehow found my way to a 12-step meeting, and things started to get a little better after that.
That's great. So, like, what was the catalyst for getting you to that first meeting? Or was it a series of things?
Yeah, it was three major things. So I people were telling me I had a drinking problem for a while, and I didn't want to believe them. And my dad actually was sober throughout my teenage years. He was about 15 years sober, and then he had a back surgery, and I got hooked on Vicodin, and started drinking again. And the person he turned into, he turned into a monster pretty quick. He lost his business, lost the family, and was homeless in a pretty short time. So that was one thing that woke me up, because I'm so similar to my dad that, in a weird way, I saw myself in him when he started drinking again, and I finally saw what people were telling me. I was like, oh my God, that's what I look like, obnoxious, loud, and just a monster.
When did you have that realization? Like, when did that occur?
It was when I was watching him drink. He drank like a 40 in front of me. In the States we have these things like 40 ounces.
Yeah, in Australia we call them long necks.
Yeah.
Or tallies.
Yeah, and he just changed. He went to the dark side.
Yeah.
Quick.
Yeah. Right.
And normal people don't go to the dark side that quick.
Was this occurring from a young age? Like, was he drinking something throughout your childhood?
When I was young, and then he got sober, and he was sober for about 15 years, and then he started up again in my late teens and early 20s.
Right.
Yeah.
Was that just a huge upheaval to the whole family?
I can't even explain how painful it was and how much it threw us off. Yeah.
Okay, so you started your day with a meeting, and then you then what'd you do?
And
go
then
get a breakfast, go for a coffee.
Yeah. I went up. I went and caught up with a friend, and then I caught up with a couple of friends today. One from San Diego, and another one from Australia. Yeah, and just ran a few errands and doing some little things for my project I'm working on.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the further project, which I mentioned in your bio there, can you maybe give us a bit of a rundown or a description of what it's all about?
Yeah, it's something I've been working on for a few years. It's a recovery based retreat. So
when you say recovery based, like recovery from drug and alcohol addiction.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And other addictions as well. I think there's going to be more layers added to it as time goes on. But focusing mainly on alcohol and drug addiction in the beginning. Yeah.
And what else? What other? What's the angle that this retreat has? Is it just purely focused on a 12-step recovery, or does it have other things that go along with it?
Yeah. So I've spent time working in rehabs over the years, and in my recovery, and what I've seen is that there's most of these primary cares they're great, and they're 12-step based, but I feel like there's so much more that could be added to it. And around 5 or 6 years into my recovery, I went through a personal awakening, and I started diving more into the meditation aspect of the 11-step of the 12-step program, and getting more into the yoga and the diet stuff, and the different types of breathing techniques, and it changed everything for me. Things got a lot better once I got sober, but I was still struggling with other addictions. Whatever it was, food, sex, whatever. And all these different modalities, they help me more than I could ever imagine. Just the different types of the breathing techniques and clearing childhood trauma and all these things.
Do you think it's pretty common for people who suffer from addiction to think that, okay, if I take the alcohol and drugs out of my life, everything's going to be okay? But it actually, like you just mentioned then, do you find it transfers into other aspects of your life once those things are taken away? And then having to maybe make excuses for your behavior afterwards. Does that make sense?
Totally. And what I'm finding out, recently, is that it's actually the alcohol and the drugs weren't really the problem. Obviously, they caused a lot of problems, but it's actually this it's this emptiness inside of people, of myself, that is what we're trying to numb. This low self-esteem and this feeling of worthlessness that is we're trying to numb it out with whatever it is. Alcohol, it could be love, love to someone, or violence. It just can come out in any number of ways, and we won't even be aware of it. I've walked through these things and I wasn't even aware.
It's interesting. Yeah, it's complicated. I want to go back to, so you grew up in California, specifically in San Diego. And you were born in San Diego?
I was born in Los Angeles.
Oh, Los Angeles. Okay. And so you grew up there, and what was your hometown then? What would you class as your hometown growing up?
So I went to 11 different schools in 12 years growing up.
Wow.
My dad was an alcoholic, my mom was a drug addict, and it was just chaotic. they moved us all over the states, you know, all over California, Florida, Montana, Hawaii. But we mostly lived in San Diego, and that's why I call San Diego home.
Okay.
So
how'd you find moving so much at a young age? Like, you often hear about people or young people having to, I mean, I see it as a teacher, like seeing young people transferring to new schools constantly, and then I've met kids that have been to 3 or 4 different schools, and they seem to develop this hardness around them, this like big barricade of sort of, I don't know, emotional like detachment or something. I mean, is that how you felt moving from school to school, just as a survival mechanism?
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's interesting to hear that from your perspective as a teacher, because I haven't had the opportunity to see that. But yeah, I really didn't like moving around that much. You know, I always wanted to live in the same town and the same home, and that looked like so nice to me. And you know, now that I'm older, I look back and I think, wow, that was actually it was what it was, and it built character. But it was just the way that we were doing it that was tough. You know, we were like living in poverty, basically, moving all over the country.
And what was the purpose for moving so much, like for your parents?
My parents were they were on the run. That's
okay.
That's what they knew best. You know,
Right.
Things aren't working out, I'm out of here. You know.
And do you have any siblings?
I have one younger brother.
Okay.
Yeah. His name's Patrick.
Nice one, man.
Yeah.
And you guys pretty close?
We are.
Yeah, nice.
We're like closer than ever. You know.
Really? And does he surf as well?
Yeah. Yeah. He just kills it.
Was that a big part of your childhood, like to escape maybe like surfing with your brother?
Totally. You know, the beach became my home.
Yeah, right.
It became our home because it was, you know, an opportunity to get away from our house. You know, our household was very uncomfortable growing up, so surfing just became like our excuse to stay out of the house.
Like, where was your like home break? Do you have a home break?
Seaside.
Seaside.
In North County, San Diego.
I often hear like pro surfers like Rob Machado talking about Seaside.
Yeah.
In fact, I think they just made a new surfboard called the Seaside.
The model, the Seaside,
the model
right?
is
Yeah,
called the Seaside.
yeah. I grew up watching Rob surf, so that was a pleasure. Yeah.
So was it just a really good surf scene down there?
Totally.
A lot of pros hanging out and good vibes.
Good community.
Competitive.
Very competitive. Yeah. It pushed everyone to get better. You know, and I mean, the waves aren't amazing. It's very rare to get barreled there, but there's always something to surf. It's very consistent. It's fun. Yeah.
Nice.
And like, Mexico's close too, so.
Yeah, like, is it just like a peaky beach break, Seaside?
Seaside is a reef. Well, it's actually 3 peaks. Sometimes some might argue more, but there's the reef, the outside Seaside, and then there's Palisades, sandbar left, and then parking lots, which is a sandbar right on the inside. Yeah, right. So there's always something to surf.
So there's all little setups everywhere. Yeah, on one stretch.
Yep.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of like Canggu, Echo Beach. Like, it's so crowded and busy, but it's like in the one stretch of, say, 400 meters of beach, it's got like left point break, sandbar, sometimes like a second little beachy, then the river mouth, then Pereiranan, like all in the one stretch, and like it sounds the same, like so consistent, and it just seems to spread the crowd out, and you get plenty of waves. It's bizarre, and everyone's pushing each other pretty hard. So, that's pretty cool. Like, so, how old were you when you first started surfing?
My dad taught me. Well, I grew up around the ocean because my mom's from Hawaii originally, and I went back and forth a lot growing up. You know, went to elementary school in Big Island, came back to the States, and for schooling, and then went back to Kauai for high school. So I grew up around the ocean, and my dad taught me when I was around 9 years old, and then I got more into it when I was about 15, 16. You know, I was a bit of a late bloomer, but once I was hooked, it was like my number one focus.
Yeah. Just focused on it. And then did you start like competing at a junior level or
Yeah.
like like what sort of level of competition? Like in Australia, we have what they call board riders,
Mhm.
and they have like which is like local club events,
Yeah.
monthly, and then sometimes there'll be inter board rider challenges. So it's like regional.
Yeah.
So
It was similar to that.
Similar sort of vibe.
Yeah. In
Yeah.
Southern California, there's like a circuit that all the schools do, and so got super into doing that for a while. And
So is
that's
a school supported activity?
yeah.
Yeah, no way.
Yeah, it's cool. And we had surf PE
Did you?
at my school and everything. Yeah.
Nice. Were there any like teachers at your school or during your schooling years that stood out for you? That's a tough
Yeah.
question. I mean,
Yeah.
going to 11 different schools, it must be hard to think of one.
Yeah, I can actually think of one guy, in third grade, and his name was Mr. Guy Vet.
No
And I don't know
way.
what it was about the guy, but he was just really cool.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can't even really explain what it was about him, but I just loved him.
Yeah, right.
And then there must have been a couple of other ones over the years, but other than that, I really didn't like school.
Yeah. Was it just a place where you felt really isolated and lonely most of the time?
Yeah, and I think my upbringing made it tough to focus on school.
Like because it was so chaotic at home, or
Yeah. When I was really young, I did well in school, and then around 5th or 6th grade, I didn't have much supervision, and I started to kind of pull back from it,
Yeah.
and lean more into surfing and other things.
Yeah. Like.
Well, the drugs and alcohol didn't come until later. But yeah, just survival. It just felt like we were just surviving.
Yeah. Did you have like a crew of friends that you would surf with, like day in day out and?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had like 5 friends that were like brothers.
Like, were your parents supportive of your surfing, or they just didn't give a shit?
They thought it was cool, but not super supportive. Just too wrapped up in their own stuff. And like my dad taught me to surf, he loved it, but then he would say things like, the fact that I was pursuing competing and all that, he'd say things like, I hope this doesn't ruin your life, kid, and not super positive about it.
Yeah. It's funny. I hope I don't become that kind of parent. I remember once when I first started skateboarding when I was 12, my mum said to me, "Oh, this will be a fad. You'll be over it, and you'll be over it soon. And you can't get a job skateboarding," which I never did. I never made it a living. But screw you, Mum. I'm 42 and I still skate.
Yeah.
Okay, so like I knew. I remember thinking like I think I even said that. I was like, dude, I'm gonna be still skating my whole life. And she's like, yeah, sure you will. And you often hear that, like, especially when I hear pros talk about their surfing in their interviews, and or skateboarders as well. There's often opposition from parents, and I guess it's just parents wanting the best for their kid, and they see the reality of making a living.
Yeah.
And it's probably also based in like they want to cut the ties with the kid a little bit as well and let them fend for themselves. But
Yeah. I think there's a healthy way to do it, right? Like making sure that your child is focusing on education, but also supporting their passion, right?
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I fully agree. Like, I don't want to stifle their creativity, like, and I'll be honest with you, as I get older now, I definitely really don't want my kids to go down a traditional career path. That working 9 to 5 and chasing some kind of financial dream. I mean, I don't know. I just really do think it's all bullshit.
Yeah.
But they can do it. We'll see how it all pans out, eh?
Yeah, totally. I'm like so excited to educate my daughter in the way I wish I had been I could have been educated. Because I really didn't enjoy the education system in the States growing up. It just didn't light the fire in me at all. And
why didn't it light the fire?
Well, I think what we're taught in school, it's I don't know if I want to go down this route, but It's
Go
not. It
down
isn't.
that
It
route.
isn't exactly. It doesn't feel like it's very. It feels like it's laid out in a way to kind of keep us blind to what we're really capable of, and what's possible in the world. It's yeah. I don't know how else to put it really.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I've given a lot of thought over the years, and it's very hard for school systems to nurture the individual and their specific talents. I think they try I know that schools are trying harder and harder to do that, but given the rigid structure of many schools, it's very difficult for everyone involved, teachers, senior staff, parents.
Yeah.
That's why, and I think what I've come to the conclusion is that I just feel like schools, there needs to be maybe less focus on academics and more focus on making the place just a really nice place to be. Because when you think about it, young people spend such special years of their life in this one place, day in, day out. And my memories of high school are going to this like shitty old brick building with cold, sterile classrooms, and I just didn't want to be there. I didn't want to be in that environment. So, how old's your daughter?
She's gonna be 2 soon.
2.
Yeah.
2.
August 23rd.
Terrible 2s.
Yeah.
How you feeling about that?
Terrible happy talks, right?
Terrible happy talk. Well, she'll be terribly happily talking.
Yeah.
How's her speech coming along?
She's so freaking smart, dude. It's amazing.
Yeah.
She's just like, you'll say something once to her and she's got it. She's
crazy.
spitting out sentences.
Dude.
Like, it's insane. People just, are amazed by how smart she is.
Yeah. They're just such sponges, man.
Yeah.
And I know, like, my daughter, she was really slow to walk. She didn't start walking till she was like 18 months, like almost 2. And we were freaking out. We're like, oh man, like, is there something wrong with her? Like, we were starting to really think that because she wasn't even crawling. She'd just sit there and, play with toys and books. But her speech was really developing, like ahead of other kids her age. Mm-hmm. So she just developed in that area first, and then the walking and that came just in time for me to not freak out too much. But yeah, and you've really got to watch what you say. I'll never forget, dude. She's in the back of the car one day, and she was just like, I'm going to say it. She was like, I think we were just about ready to go somewhere. The car was turned off. She was pulling on the seatbelt, and she just started going, like in the cutest voice imaginable. She just started going, fuck. I had no idea what she was saying, dude. And it kind of like, you just go, am I a bad person? Am I a bad parent?
Mm. Yeah, that was our daughter's favorite word for a while. After, her mom and I had an argument. Yeah, that F word stuck with her for a little while. It was pretty funny. It was cute, actually. And
it only takes like one occasion, or they hear it on the radio in a song. They're like, you can't wrap them in cotton wool and protect them from all of that. Mm-hmm. So now I've actually become less conscious of swearing around her because I'm like, she's going to hear it other places. Yeah. And when I do swear, I'll actually excuse myself. And go, oops, excuse me, I just swore. So she realizes. But surprisingly, considering how much I accidentally swear in front of her and Jade, my wife, she doesn't really repeat it that much. So it's like as she's now 4.5, she's now clued into, okay, yeah, you don't need to say that word. It's not a great word, even though mum and dad say it.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's interesting. So did you actually graduate from high school?
I did.
Dude.
Yeah.
Nice. How'd you feel?
It was the happiest day of my life.
Was it?
To get out of there, yeah.
Just it was over.
I was just over it.
Man.
Yeah. I just felt so trapped.
Trapped.
And I just wanted to see the world, and surf. My surfboard was a tool to do that.
So when did your, in terms of like surf career, okay, like when did that start to really escalate in terms of stepping it up, really like traveling to surf, things like that? Did that start in your late teens, early 20s or?
Yeah, well, the thing is, so around 21, me and my brother started to get some push, and so you know, we would get sent on these trips, you know, wherever, Australia, like, or we'd go to like places like east coast of Canada, trying to find waves and stuff like that. And yeah, it was amazing. But I would go on these trips and I would just drink, you know. I would just like the alcoholism kicked in young for me.
Okay.
So I would I'd say I'd blew a lot of opportunity doing that, but I just didn't know what was going on at the time.
So that they were sending you on trips as free surfers,
Yeah.
to promote their brand.
Mhm.
So there was no expectation to compete,
No, it was most, you know, just to get exposure.
and like trying to find like unique, maybe remote breaks with a photographer.
Yep.
I'm assuming.
Yeah, definitely.
No way. Like, what was some standout like locations though in terms of good surf that was unique? I mean, Mexico would have been an obvious one for you guys.
Yeah. The east coast of Canada.
Yeah,
This one
right.
trip we did was just it was amazing because there were no other surfers around.
Yeah.
Tons of waves. It just felt so wild and like such an amazing adventure to be
Yeah,
like
right.
searching for waves, you know, that hadn't been surfed before, or they might have been, but there was no one around that we could see.
Super cold.
Yeah, cold.
Dude, what sort of
It was
wetsuits were you
beautiful.
wearing?
Blueberries growing on the beach, coming from a surf, eat wild blueberries.
No way.
Yeah,
Is
wearing
that
like-
area? That's not like Newfoundland?
that's where we were.
Around there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Newfoundland.
Dude, that must be so cold.
Yeah. Yeah, we were there in September, and it was still quite cold. You know, that's just coming out of the summer for us.
So, like, your sponsor was sending you on these like, effectively paid trips.
Yeah.
Was just like the excitement of that almost too much? Like, I know if I was in that situation as an early 20-year-old, I would just be like, with no expectation to compete,
Yeah.
just to get some good waves.
Yeah. It's amazing because I set that intent from a young age that was what I wanted to do. That was my main focus, and then it happened, and then I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it happened, and yeah, it was an amazing opportunity. But there's also like, you know, a bit of like, oh well, I missed out on some opportunities there. But you know, now looking back, that was just my path, and everything I've walked through has led me to this place of turning it into a gift.
Like, okay, so you were on these surf trips and just the compulsion to drink just became like super heavy.
Totally.
Was it kind of like if you had a really good session and you got the shot, you got the clip, you know, you kind of felt like you did your job? Did it really kick in after those moments?
Totally. And that's the insanity of an alcoholic. It's like, you know, things could be going really well, and you're like, okay, wow, I'm gonna drink, you know. That,
Yeah.
but it's the same if like, you know, things are going really bad, and it's like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna drink. It's like, I'm a piece of shit, you know.
Right. Like, and so that feeling, what you just said then was like, oh, I'm a piece of shit. Like, even though there's a brand out there who didn't think that at all, they
Mhm.
admired your surfing and your brother by the sounds of things.
Mm-hmm.
And you probably had some good friends and support around you. Like, can you maybe describe like how intense that feeling of, I guess, what is it? Would you call it shame of, you know, feeling like a piece of shit? Like, describe how intense that is. Like, is it something that's constantly in the back of your mind, or?
It plagues you. You know, I've been plagued by these thoughts from a young age, and I'm just now, you know, getting to a place of figuring out where that's coming from. You know, because it's, how do we know? We don't know until we do work around it. It's yeah, I'm not sure how else to explain it. It's the only thing that quiets it is drinking or drugs.
When you say quiet it, like, is it just like noise in your head that you can't sign it? Like, I often compare it to like overthinking. So you're overthinking, overanalyzing, predicting.
Really hard on yourself.
Problem solving.
Really hard on myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you make a mistake or you stuff up or you don't get the clip or the shot, you would just, okay.
Yeah, then you just go into that insanity, and like, I'm a pile of you know what, and yeah, and you just do anything to numb it.
Yeah, it's I don't know. Here's a question for you. Do you feel like, okay, there's, aside from alcoholics and addicts, do you feel like the everyday Joe Blow has those same feelings and thoughts, and probably don't identify it as being shame?
I think so, but not as intense, because I've spent a lot of time around, what you would call normal people, and people like recovering alcoholics and addicts, and there's a difference. It's these people are really, really hard on themselves, and have low self-esteem, and then they've got this like emptiness thing,
Yeah.
And what I'm finding out is, that comes from abandonment issues, and just being made to feel worthless from a young age.
Yeah.
So, I'll speak for myself. I've carried this my whole life and haven't even been aware of it.
Yeah.
And I've done things to try to seek out that love, whether it's in alcohol or my partner, and completely destroyed and self-sabotaged a lot of things, even in sobriety. So yeah, it's been a humbling experience.
Yeah, it's amazing how strong the experiences that you have as a child can be, and then how powerful they can be in like maybe guiding your life and your adult behaviours. And that's something I've learned, and I'm learning as I get older,
Yeah.
And going back to what you were saying about like looking for ways to numb those feelings and thoughts that seem to persist and follow you around.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'm just becoming a little bit more aware, but I feel that like I just have to walk down the street and I see people numbing themselves with their mobile phones. It's a distraction, and I do it too, and it does it. Whatever's going on in my head at the time, it's just so easy to pull this thing out of your pocket and look at that screen with the bright lights, and within a second you are forgetting about how you're feeling, what your problems are, what you're worried about. And I'm just really interested to see how it's all going to pan out for our society in terms of relationships and mental health.
Yeah.
I mean, you just have to look at the epidemiology on mental health globally, and it's actually quadrupling.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and especially in males. And
Yeah.
that's when I see that data and those statistics, it just alarm bells start to ring, and I just can't help going back to two things: mobile phones and consumerism.
Mm-hmm.
So using a mobile phone and reading and looking at things on your phone, that's a form of consumerism. And I feel like it's this mass consumerism that's really driving mental health and mental illness in our society. And like you said at the start, I really identified with that alcohol and drugs are just a symptom
Mm-hmm.
of those things. And I think in the alcoholic and the addict, they're just an extreme case of the human condition. And there's a guy, Russell Brand, and I know you know him. He said once, I might have been in a podcast or an interview, that guy's just so epic, the way he articulates things. He said that someone once said to him, it might have been a sponsor or it might have been a friend or a counsellor, they said, hey, thank God you found alcohol and drugs because they saved your life,
Yeah.
And when I heard that, I was like, that's a really different perspective. Sorry, I know I've just talked a lot then. I went off on a bit of a tangent, but yeah, I'm just really identifying with the things you're saying there. So.
Yeah. Do you feel like when you look at Instagram, does it make you feel better or worse normally?
Yeah,
Something like that.
it makes me feel, at the moment, it's it's actually becoming addictive again. I stopped using social media for about 3 years because of those reasons. It was giving me anxiety. It was making me feel bad. I was seeing what other people were doing, and I kept comparing their life to my life, and I was feeling bad. But what they're posting is all bullshit. You don't really know if that's what it's like. And it was, like you, it was doing my head in, and I had to switch it off, and I did. And then it's just recently since I moved to Bali, because unfortunately, it's the way our society communicates now. I was looking for a place to live for me and my family, and I had to use social media to communicate with agents and people that own villas and stuff like that. And then, since starting the podcast, I've felt very compelled to share. I want to share good stuff, So in that respect, I'm feeling a bit better about it, but I have to be very careful. And I've made rules for myself, about my usage around it, because otherwise, left to my own devices, I'm self-will, run right, and I'll be looking at that thing 50 times a day. I shit you not.
Yeah. That's how I was with it. I had a crack at it years ago, and I just got to a place where it just didn't feel healthy for me. So I pulled out of all social media. And this was like at least 5-6 years ago, maybe longer. But I'm just getting back to the place where I'm gonna have to get it going again for the project further. For further. Yeah. I love the name. Yeah, thank you. How'd you come up with that name? I just saw the word one day, and I just thought it just looked perfect, for people who want to take their recovery a step further. Yeah. Just because that's what I've done, and like for people who may have actually beat the compulsion to drink and use, have some sobriety already, or is it for people who are, ready to detox? Or it's for people who have basically already finished their primary care, or they're sober living, or even have long-term sobriety already. And they're just maybe in a place of stagnation, and they want to try something new and mix it up. Because one thing I've seen, working in rehabs and sober livings over the years, is that people get clean and they might have 90 days or 9 months, and they don't find anything that to be passionate about. And they go back to using. I see it happen so much, and I just want to give people an opportunity to find something that they might love, Do you think surfing's been a good distraction for you over the years? Has that kept you? Surfing has been my medicine, from a young age, and in my recovery. Do you think surfing prevented you from going to maybe the next deep dark level? Yeah Because I would go through periods when I would quit surfing for it felt like a year or something, and then I'd snap out of it, because I was like, what am I doing? I love to do this, and I don't even have the energy or anything to do it anymore. Yeah, right. I know I had a realization once many years ago. I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I remember one morning I woke up with the dirtiest hangover ever, and the waves were pumping at this local break of mine, and this place only gets good a few times a year, and the wind was perfect, and there wasn't many people on it because it was off the radar, because it doesn't break that often, and the swell direction was perfect. And I remember just standing on the beach, and I was like, I'm just too hungry. I just cannot surf. Yeah. I just can't. I could barely even stand on the beach, Yeah, I know that one well. And I felt like I was just so disconnected from my love, and also disconnected from the environment. This beautiful environment that wants me in it. This beautiful ocean and the air and the sun, and I couldn't be part of it. And I felt heartbroken, and then I'm watching people I know running down the beach, ready to surf these amazing waves. And, I never wanted to feel that way again.
you know.
I know that feeling very well.
Yeah.
The amount of times that I had, been drinking all night, for weeks on end or something like that, and the sun's coming up. I'm at the beach and I'm drinking a beer, and the waves are firing, and I'm just completely heartbroken.
It's the worst.
But then I just carry on and drink all day, and until I'd wake up in a different town and not know where I was at, and just,
the madness.
Yeah.
The madness. And then, like, I remember once I walked out of this nightclub in Sydney, and it was one of those nightclubs where they block out all the windows so you don't know what time of day it is. And I'll never forget, like, I walked out of there at like 11 o'clock on a Sunday morning, but I had no idea what time it was. And like, people are having breakfast in cafes and people exercising and jogging, and I just, my eyes were like, one eye's going this way, the other's going the other way. I would have stunk. I was dirty. And again, like, the looks people were giving me, were just like, that guy is just filthy, and I was.
Yeah.
But the next weekend came around, and it was the same scenario. Let's do it all over again. That was an awesome night.
Yeah. And
it's just so deceptive. I feel that, like, alcohol, it just completely, especially alcohol, but yeah, it creates these illusions in your mind that you are that you're okay and you're doing good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're really not.
It's so sad. And I have so much compassion for people that are walking through this.
Yeah,
because I've grown up around it, and a few years ago, I flew back to the States because, my dad's been homeless for about 9 years.
Okay.
After his relapse, and he shared a bit of willingness with me to get sober again, and so I went back to the States, and man, it was such a painful experience. He was hooked on methadone and drinking alcohol with it for years, living in his car. And yeah, he told me, he's like, I'll give it a shot. I'll go to rehab. And, I was like, finally, great. I'm going to do everything I can to get him into a rehab. And I couldn't get him into a place, I couldn't, like, I talked to over 20 different centers, and no one would accept him because of his insurance, which was Medicare, or because he was hooked on methadone, which is the longest detox process of any drug. And, then his willingness went away, and he went back to doing what he knows best, drinking, and I can't tell you how heartbreaking that was for me.
Does it feel like the system was letting him down? Or?
Completely. Like, because they're the ones feeding him the methadone, I mean, they're dispensing it for free, and but then they don't want to help him get off of it. It was just like, it just seems so twisted to me. Because
it would take too long, and that would be a financial strain on the system.
Yeah. And bizarre. The last time I went home, I saw more homeless people in California than I've ever seen before growing up. I did a road trip from Southern California up all the way up to San Francisco. And
was this year or last?
This was a few years ago when I did that trip. Yeah, the last one was just a quick trip to see my parents. But so yeah, I'll correct that. But I couldn't believe how many homeless people I saw. And I know a lot of these people are mentally ill, but I think most of them are drug addicts and alcoholics. And it just lit this fire in me, seeing what happened with my dad, with trying to get him help, and then seeing more homeless people than ever. And I mean, it's getting worse. The problem is getting worse with the drug and alcohol addiction. It's not getting better. And the whole reason I'm doing this project called Further, which I'm getting off the ground in an organic way, but the whole reason I'm doing it is because to get the ball rolling with my vision of someday having these centers for people, incorporating these different modalities. These centers that are affordable or free for people.
When you say different modalities, like, what are we talking? Like, you sort of touched on meditation.
Yeah.
Yoga.
Clearing childhood trauma.
Okay. Workshops
yeah.
on that.
The different breathing techniques.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Diet stuff. You know, most drunks and drug addicts have horrible diets. You start putting decent stuff in your body, you feel a bit better.
Yeah.
Surfing, if they want to learn how to surf.
Yeah, nice.
You know, just man, there's so much.
Yeah.
And
it's amazing.
I don't feel like most people even have the opportunity to see what's out there. But the world is changing.
You think people are becoming more open to it?
Yeah. Don't you feel that?
Yeah, definitely. I think I really think since the internet really took off, like I'm not that old, but I have been around long enough to see it, the access to information dramatically increase, and also the access and the ability to share knowledge has dramatically increased. Again, social media possibly is responsible for that. But I think the next progression from this access to information and sharing is that I think people are becoming a lot more willing and open to discuss these sensitive topics. And I'm also starting to feel that people are starting to challenge and question the traditional methods and systems for approaching different illness.
Yeah.
You know, whether it be mental or physical.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, mental illness can be physical as well. But I think people are looking for alternatives, and I think I want to get back to the basics.
Yeah.
And the core of it, you know. And I remember someone said to me once, like, I think it was my mum said it to me once. She's like, I think like people can take medication to help with their mental illness and their mental health. She said, and that's great, and it definitely serves a purpose. She's not doubting that, but she said the real healing comes from doing the work on yourself and getting to the core of it, and sifting it out and sifting and getting right to the bottom of the problem, and like you just used that term, walking through it, walking through the pain, walking through the struggle.
Yeah.
And then she said, this is really profound, she's like, and it might take you your whole life to work it out.
Yeah.
She said, but the journey will get progressively, you'll climb the mountain, okay? And then you'll come down the other side of the mountain, and it'll get progressively easier and easier and better and better and better, you know?
Yeah.
And that whole approach of, I've just got to be fixed, and I just want to be better, and I just want it now.
Yeah.
You know, that's a reflection of that consumer society that we've been forced to live in. Like, we want this instantaneous, what's the word I'm looking for?
Gratification.
Instantaneous gratification, and it's bullshit. It doesn't exist. It's just
we don't want to feel anything, right?
Yeah, we don't want to
unless
feel
it's
anything.
good,
Yeah.
unless it's pleasure.
But the ironic thing is, when you feel bad stuff, when the good stuff comes, that feels even better.
I know.
You get the full spectrum, as opposed to this just living in the middle, this mediocrity.
How are we going to know what joy and pleasure feels like without darkness and evil?
It's scary, hey? Like, I'm scared. I'm scared because I know there's more suffering to be had. Suffering is necessary, I think, to some degree.
I know. I
heavy.
mean, I've been walking through one of the most painful periods of my life recently, 100%. But it's leading me to so much growth, and I mean, life is humbling me big time.
Yeah, I love that word. Humble, humility. I just listened to a podcast with one of my favorite pro skaters of all time, Steve Caballero. Have you heard of him?
Yeah.
I mean, everyone knows him. He's like Tony Hawk. Everyone knows him. And he told the best story. He said that around the time the Extreme Games started, they're called the X Games now, but when they first started, they were called the Extreme Games, and this was like, I think, mid to late 90s. Anyway, ESPN, that sports channel, really grabbed onto Tony Hawk, and he was the face of the Extreme Games, and they probably paid him more money than all the other skaters, and he was on every ad, and it really made him a household name. And Steve Caballero was like, oh, that's bullshit. Like, what about everyone else? What about me? What about me? I started skating the same time as Tony. I used to beat him in skate comps. It's me. Like, what about me? Like,
Yeah.
and I was really resentful towards Tony Hawk. I was like, who was one of my best buddies. And I was like, yeah, you know, I don't think he said F word. I don't think he said, oh, fuck Tony. But he was like, yeah, I was off Tony Hawk. Like, and everyone's heard of Tony Hawk, right? And I'm like, and then a few years later, this company called Activision started this computer game called Tony Hawk Pro Skater. And they rang him up and they said, hey, we want you to be a character on the game. And he's like, yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, we love you. And Tony wants you on his game. Yep.
Yeah.
So, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll be a character. What do I have to do? Nothing. Just tell us what you want the character to wear. And he's like, okay, I want him to wear this coloured shirt and whatever. And he's like, okay. And then a week later, I got a check for $250,000 in my mail. And he goes, and if it wasn't for Tony and him paving the way for all of us, and there's a whole bunch of skaters that just got paid out because of that Tony Hawk Pro Skater game.
I love that game.
Yeah, and then it led to more corporate sponsorship, which I'm a bit on the fence about. But I'm sorry, I'm so glad to see skateboarders making money, you know, because I think it's in my opinion, one of the best sports in the world.
Oh my
God,
so hard. So much respect for skaters.
It's so hard, and it's so beautiful when it's done right. Anyway,
Yeah.
So, and he's like, yeah, and he goes, and I learnt one of the biggest lessons is like, so I just got a check in the mail for $250,000 for doing fuck all. And then he's like, and he goes, it's so, and I was just humbled. And then he actually started crying in his podcast, which to see one of your lifelong mentors cry, I was just like, I started tearing up as well, I'll be honest with you. And then he and he goes, and I felt really bad to Tony, like, and I resented him, and I actually had to approach it with him and say sorry. And he goes, and you should never underestimate the importance of being humble and celebrating the success of others.
Amazing.
I was like, that's rad.
Yeah.
Anyway, just thought I'd share that.
No, that's incredible. Yeah.
Sorry, long story.
You never know when it's coming from, but I love hearing stuff like that.
Yeah,
I grew up with that game.
Dude, so many people did.
Yeah.
See, I didn't, because like I was before that game.
Yeah.
Then when it came out, I was like, I hate computer games. I just want to go skate. It's all bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So, look, listen. I want to go back to surf talk. Sorry. I just love talking about surfing. Is that all right?
Me too.
Yeah. So, okay. So you got this sponsor. You were surfing different breaks around the world. And I know I mean, in the time I've known you, I can see that surfing is just so part of your being.
Mm.
And, you know, I've seen photographs of you absolutely charging solid padang, which is by no means a wave that, you know, like it's regarded as the jewel in the crown of Indonesia. Like it's one of the best left-handers going around. And I've seen that sequences of you like getting just these double up barrels at temples at Uluwatu. So you're in the water a lot. How do you feel about the current state of surf culture?
I try to stay away from it. You know, after I got dropped with my sponsors and all that, I fully pulled out, and I went like kind of into the underground, you know, in Indonesia, and I just wanted to focus on getting barreled with just my buddies and being as far away as possible from surf culture and all of that.
Like the scene.
The scene.
Yeah.
I honestly.
What repelled you?
It's I don't know, man. I don't want to sound negative.
You don't have to sound negative. It can just be an observation.
Yeah, it's just I don't know, man. I mean, in general, I feel like, you know, surfers are assholes, selfish assholes. Not all of them, right? There's some beautiful souls out there, and I can even be a selfish asshole. I try not to be, but you know, if you go surf Ulus on any random day, it's a pain in the ass to get waves out there. I mean, people will just paddle around you, do a lot. It's like they think that you want to watch them surf, you know? And I mean, It's fun to watch guys surf, but you want to get waves too, right? I mean, so I try to avoid crowds as much as possible these days, and it's easy to do. It's fairly easy to do in Indonesia, especially.
I'm surprised.
I mean, in Bali, not so much. There's a few nooks and crannies still with no one out, but in Indonesia, there's amazing waves out there with no one around. If you're willing to suffer a bit, without having the restaurants and all that nearby. And that's something that I still want to pursue. I've done a bit of it, but I've been a bit more focused on family and work stuff, the past few years. But
do you feel like you're in your element when you're in those remote areas with, little resources and, no fancy little cafe where you can go get a latte straight away?
Yeah, I don't know if saying that I feel like I'm in my element is the right way to put it, because it's uncomfortable, when you're out in the middle of nowhere and just waiting for the waves to get good. That you're eating noodles or just crappy food, and you got low energy all the time, and it's hot, and but I feel like I'm in my element when I'm standing in a barrel. That makes it all worth it.
Yeah, like you recently did a trip to Desert Point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're a goofy footer.
Yeah.
So, talk us through that wave, when it gets solid. Because, I actually watched a surf movie last night with Mason Ho and Mick Fanning. And, I'm really not the best backhand barrel rider. But then I watched that movie and I watched it, Mason Ho playing with the barrel at Desert Point. I'm talking playing with it, just grabbing his board in all different ways. He actually, chop hopped into a pig dog stance into a barrel. I don't know if you've seen it.
I haven't seen it yet.
You gotta watch it.
I gotta get on the social media.
What's the wave like? Is it somewhere you've frequented it over the years, or?
The first time I went to Desert Point, I flipped out when I saw the wave reeling across the reef. I've never seen anything like that. It's mechanical. It's a mechanical barrel. It just drains across the reef. I've gotten better waves since, but over the years, but it stands out in my mind as one of the best. You can get 3-4 barrels on one wave. Right. The grower is absolutely mental. Yeah. It's a wave that I would like to focus on more as well. Yeah.
In terms of just going on more trips there or getting better at understanding it?
Yeah. Yeah. Just understanding it better and going back there with the right equipment if it's big. But it's one of those spots that's really crowded, so that kind of gets to you a little bit, like Uluwatu. Yeah. And there's so many places that you can go in Indonesia with no one around if you're willing to sacrifice comfort.
Yeah, you showed me footage or a photo of there was a huge swell. I think it was last year, and you just went, and I'll never forget this. You're like, dude, I'm going on a surf mission to Sumbawa. You want to come? I'm like, I'd love to. Just moved here with my family. We don't really have anywhere to live yet, and I was probably making excuses anyway. Yeah. Right, even if I could go, because it was like a next level swell. And then what I really admired about you, and if you want to talk about dedicated surfers, you just got on your scooter with your boards and just rode from Bali to Sumbawa by yourself. So you talk us through that mission. What does that involve, and how many? How far are we talking?
Well, I've done that trip quite a few times now, so I'm used to it. But in the beginning, it's a brutal mission. And that particular trip, I saw the swell coming, and I had a few days free. I had a window to get away from work and family life, and I had 2 friends that were thinking about coming with me, and they backed out last minute because they thought maybe the swell wasn't going to be very good, or but I don't know. I just had this feeling that it was going to be on, and yeah, I just decided to go solo. And I almost didn't go, but at the last minute I was like, you know what? No, I'm just going head down, right over to the ferry and you know, and see what happens. And
Were these secret, like, so you went to Western Bower?
yeah, West Sumbawa.
So
And
did you surf like secret spots, or was it like places like Scar Reef?
yeah, you know, and Super Suck, Scar Reef in that area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, how did you feel just rocking up by yourself and paddling out in those kind of waves? Is there still the fear there, or?
The rad thing about doing things on your own is people are more willing to take you in. You know what I mean?
Okay.
If you're like with a crew, it can be a bit standoffish. But if you're solo, people are like, I feel like people respect that. Yeah, and you know, I ended up seeing someone over there, and he invited me to surf this wave, and it ended up being one of the most special sessions I've ever had in Indonesia. Like triple overhead, sheet glass, barreling lefts.
Amazing.
Like riding the boat out to the peak, I was just screaming because it's the stuff you dream of as a kid in Indonesia.
Yeah. Wow.
And I just, at that moment, I was like, this is why you don't let other people rule your life. You know, or like, you know, it was, I got the payoff because I went solo, and I was willing.
Yeah.
I was willing to go.
Yeah, and you just stuck to what you wanted to do, and
I can't tell you how good it felt to send those photos to my friends who didn't come.
But I do love that, like, you were just like, you went with your gut instinct, and then you just maintained focus on what you wanted to do. Like,
Yeah.
does that translate into other things you do in your life, like developing the further program and stuff like that?
Yeah. I've I guess I like doing things on my own a lot of the time. But
you're not a team player.
I can be, but I do. My friends joke, you know, they a couple of my friends, they call me not the lone wolf, but the lone coyote.
Why do you look more like a coyote?
Just
than
like
a wolf?
I think they're just taking jabs in any way possible. But yeah, it's I don't know. It's a balance, because then I can be a bit too needy as well. I'm finding out. You know?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't want to analyze it too much, but do you think that maybe that whole mentality of doing things by yourself was one of those survival tools you developed as a kid? Is that another one of them?
Yeah, quite possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel the same sometimes. Like, I actually said it to my mate today. I was doing some work stuff. And there's no problem, but I'm actually collaborating on something with, and I said to my mate, I just said, "Oh man, I'm so not a team player. Like, I just want everything done my way, on my time, on my schedule."
It's just easier.
But it doesn't end, whether it's work, relationships, parenting.
Yeah.
It's a control thing.
Totally.
Yeah. Do you like being in control?
Yeah.
You do?
I didn't think I was a controlling person, but, you know, like I said, life's been humbling me a lot lately, and realizing where I have been controlling and trying to do work around that.
That life, that term, life's been humbling me a lot lately.
Yeah.
I mean, that just reinforces to me that we don't have much control over anything, really.
Totally.
And the more control you think you have, well, then the less you have. And
Yeah.
I mean, I've learned that lesson time and time again.
Yeah.
So it's yeah.
And there's no control in love, right? In true love. And yeah, that's something that I've had to learn recently. You know, because for a lot of my life, I thought I knew best for, you know, people or my family, and realizing I don't know what's best for anyone, you know. People just need to follow their heart and do what feels right for them. And if we can be supportive of that, that's being loving, right?
Yeah, good call, man.
Yeah.
That's so true. Yeah, like controlling people has been one of my biggest challenges, or feeling like I want to be in control of people, because I mean, it definitely comes from fear, but you often see it when people go from relationship to relationship because, you know, like the relationship falls apart because you've got these two people who both have their own agenda. Okay, maybe not moving in the same direction, and then they pull apart. But then they get into other relationships, and then the same thing happens, and then they go to and then they just jump straight into another one, and another one, and another one, expecting a different result. But it's because, in my opinion, it's because they want to control that person in their relationship. But I'm not just talking about personal relationships. I'm talking about work relationships. So
Yeah.
I've had fallouts with people at work, and
Mm-hmm.
it was like, oh, it's their fault. They're just a wanker, or they're a control freak, or they can't communicate. Okay, and then I went through a period, and then it would be like 6 months later, I had a fallout with another person, and then I'd be like, they're just a wanker. They're a control freak. They can't communicate, or
Mm-hmm.
you know, they want to do everything on their terms. And I'm like, and then after doing this for probably 10 years, I went, yeah, okay, there's a common denominator here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
interesting.
Powerful.
Yeah, so interesting, bro. Anyway, so what brought you to Bali in the first place? I've always been curious. Like, you've been here for how long?
Full time, about 5 or 6 years now, but been spending most of my time out here for like the last 10 years.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, 9 or 10 years.
Full time.
Full time, 5 or 6 years now.
No way.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, growing up, Bali's an iconic surf destination, so I always wanted to come out here. But yeah, I came out here on a surf trip, and I got invited from a friend who grew up here. His dad was from the States, but lived in Bali since like 1975,
Right.
and raised his kids here. And one of his kids came to San Diego to go to my high school for a year, and we became really tight. And he invited me to come out. So that was, yeah, I fell in love with it.
Yeah. Did you feel at home here as soon as you came here? Or?
You hear people talk about it a lot. There's
I've noticed that.
there's this feeling of comfort when you get off the plane here. It's hard to describe, because in the States you don't feel it. In Australia you don't feel it. It's like the energy is it's more like stale or something. Even though Australia is beautiful and parts of the States are beautiful, you don't feel that comforting energy when you get off the plane.
Like, what's your theory on that? Then?
My opinion.
No, I agree. Like, but what's your theory on that? Because, like you just said, I've heard numerous people say that.
Yeah, I mean, my theory would be that, I mean, obviously I don't have a clue, but my theory is that, the fact that the local people here are constantly doing ceremonies and rituals has an effect on the energy here, and I've also heard things like Bali's a portal, I'm not sure how to describe it, but it's a special place on the planet.
Geographically.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is. I can feel it.
Yeah.
People talk about the energy, and when I'd come here on trips over the years, when you're only here for a couple of weeks at a time, I sort of knew that I love it. And you see a lot of people, tourists, they come here and they've got this, you can just see the freedom in their face. It's bizarre. But it wasn't until I moved here that people were like, there's an energy here, that, don't you? And I'm like, yeah, whatever, sure. But now I really feel it. And there's actually some days I hear myself saying, oh, the energy's not good today. Don't make eye contact with anyone. But also, like, we have a banjar, not just across the river. And 6 a.m. every morning they play the Hindu prayers,
Yeah.
And at first, the first few months or the first 6 months, it was like, oh, it's a novelty. Oh, there's those Hindu prayers again. But day in, day out, the same prayers, and they jingle this bell. And I'm going to be completely upfront and go, I hear it now, and I stop, I close my eyes, I say a prayer with the prayer. And it's 6 o'clock every day, whether you're up at 6 or not. I mean, I often am because the kids are up at 5. God damn it! But But yeah, like I think that spirituality is just so entrenched in everything they do,
Mm-hmm.
and it really gets into you.
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty.
It's hard to explain,
special.
right?
And
But
that we don't have it in our societies.
mm-mm.
You know, we don't have that level of commitment. I mean, they pray 3 times a day,
Yeah.
and ceremonies monthly for the full
I
moon.
think there's like 300 ceremonies in the year, right? Something like that.
I'm not
Something
sure.
crazy like that.
I mean, there's a big one coming up this weekend for Kuningan,
mm-hmm.
and then the locals were doing a ceremony. They just closed the whole street without any warning
Yeah.
the other day. And it was the one where I feel so ignorant saying this, but it was the one where all the women wear the fruit baskets on their head, the big towers of fruit baskets. I don't know what it is. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, they have some beautiful
and
outfits.
they've been doing that for I think hundreds of years. And they haven't changed the process.
Yeah.
I've seen a photo from like turn of the century, and it's exactly the same.
Yeah.
So
There's so much history here. I mean, I think it's called the Besaki Temple in Mount Lagoon. Have you heard of that one?
no,
It was built in the 7th century.
no way.
Yeah, and there's 7 different levels that are all based off the different chakras of the human body.
Yeah.
Incredible. 7th century, you know.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. Like I said, that's the biggest contrast in cultures I've noticed since moving here. Yeah. And I love it. It's just great. But then there's some days I hate it.
Oh, it can be intense.
know?
There's a dark side too.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not living well, Bali will show you.
And
I feel that.
Do you?
And many people, yeah. I mean, I've had so many friends come here, and you can tell they're in a bad space in their life, and bad stuff happens. Man, they get in motorcycle accidents. They get graded across the reef surfing. Like,
Okay.
but then there's other people that come, and you can tell they're living well. They're doing it, and like Bali nurtures them and supports them. That's one thing I've noticed in the years of being here.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I've seen it. Like when we first arrived here, my wife broke her collarbone.
Mm-hmm.
And then, my little boy got pneumonia. I had to spend 5 days in hospital. And then like a week later, my wife broke her collarbone badly and had to have an operation.
Yeah.
And I was dead set like, well, we're going home. Bali's rejecting us. They said it happened.
A lot of people get sent packing, but you didn't get sent packing, dude. Bali kept you here.
Well, then a few Bali gurus, I think such as yourself, you might have been one of them, they said, yeah, the ones that stay, the ones that make it, they get tested when they first get here. So you've just been tested, so you're not rejected just yet. You'll know if you're rejected. I'm like, okay. But I must admit, touch wood, I didn't want to say this, but it's been, since those incidents, it's just become better and better.
Yeah.
So, and, yeah.
There's nowhere like this in the world. I mean,
There's not.
like Bali, it's hard to describe what it's like living here, and it's so safe compared to most places. Yeah, bad things happen here.
Yeah.
People's houses gets robbed and stuff like that, but it's a safe place.
Yeah, like I'm so not worried about violent crime or something like that. Actually, the only time I get nervous is if I'm in like one of those really built up tourist areas at night. Like if I have to go near Kuta or Legian, and I'm scared of the drunk tourists on motorbikes.
Oh yeah.
And even around here in Canggu, like at night time on a weekend or whatever.
Yeah.
They're the only times I'm ever scared.
They're rowdy.
Yeah. Like, so does Bali still have the same magic for you?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's been such a healing place for me.
Okay.
In my recovery and everything with the surfing and the people I've met. I feel like I was meant to be here for sure. And I've tried to leave here multiple times and go back to the States, and like something pulls me back.
Sucks you back.
I'll go home and I can't get a job, but then a job offer happens in Bali, and it's like, oh well, I'm heading back.
Do you feel like some of that healing came from being removed from your family?
Yeah. At a certain point, I just I needed to remove myself from that toxic environment.
Okay.
Because it can be all consuming.
And like give you a different perspective on it,
Yeah.
like outside looking in.
Mm-hmm.
What's your relationship with your parents like at the present state?
It's probably the best it's ever been. You know, I talk to them every week. I'm in a place of just accepting them for who they are. They're not going to change anytime soon. You know, my dad's in his late 60s now, and my mom's in her late 50s, and yeah, they are who they are. And I mean, their behavior led to so much growth for me. So, I mean, how could I, you know?
It's interesting. See, there's a positive spin on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've often reflected on that. Some of the worst things that have happened in my life have actually led to some of the best things. It's bizarre.
It's crazy. Like my dad relapsing, and you know, that was one of the most painful things I ever had to experience because of what I saw him turn into. But I don't think I would have gotten sober if it wasn't for that.
Exactly. There you go.
I wouldn't have gained that awareness.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So
what a learning experience. And then the fact that you were then helping him later on, like trying to find treatment centers for him, like you actually got the opportunity to be of service to him, and that was probably giving you a lot of closure on some of the pain and resentment that you had towards him, maybe.
Totally.
And by having the opportunity to be of service to him,
yeah,
I'm sure, I know for me that would have been a huge sense of, you know, giving back and closure and forgiveness. So,
yeah, and it just lit a fire in me.
It did?
To want to find a way to get help for people in his position.
And not go down the same road.
Yeah. Like, there has to be something something done about the current situation, and I'm not sure how it's going to happen, and I'm not one of these people that's here to save the world, but I think if we can just try and make an attempt at, starting small and helping, and seeing where that goes, what else can we do?
You seem like someone who's really dedicated to helping others. Like, I've noticed it, like, even since I've met you, like, if I've ever needed assistance with something or just some advice on Bali or even just someone to talk to, you've never hesitated to reach out or be there. Is that an active choice on how you want to conduct yourself in life?
I wasn't raised that way.
Right.
I was raised to be very selfish. So that was something that was learned, through recovery.
Gotcha.
Because, the most joy I've ever experienced has been in helping people. The way I was raised, it was like, if you're not rich or famous, you're basically a piece of shit, just an average Joe in the world. And
you were raised that way.
Not so much by my parents, but by
you grew up in,
like media and culture, and and especially in the States, it's like, and it's just it's horrible because look what's happening to so many kids, man. Suicide rates going up, and it's just. So for me, it was massive to get to a place where, I realized that stuff actually doesn't really matter. It's great if it happens, but what really matters is being of service to your fellows and trying to help each other and trying to learn how to love each other, right? That's what we're here on the planet to do. And if we can all do that, man, we're going to have a beautiful planet.
For sure.
Beautiful.
And like, is that where the good feelings are for you now? Helping others? Not
totally.
Not drugs and alcohol.
Yeah. It brings a level of fulfillment that I've never experienced with anything else, and I'm just now embarking on that journey, really, of stepping into what I feel like is my purpose, with this project. But, ever since I've stepped into recovery, I've always tried my hardest to find ways to be of service if I can. Yeah. And a lot of times the opportunities will come to me. It's bizarre. A friend will come to me that I haven't seen in 10 years who's, hooked on heroin or something, and I'll do everything I can to help him.
Yeah.
because it helps me. It strengthens my recovery.
Yeah. It's so interesting. It's so interesting because like it's kind of the opposite to what our cultures lead us to believe. It's generally all about like you've got to get yours and it's dog eat dog. And it's then what you just said then is like ironically when I'm out helping people the best I can, opportunities actually come to me.
Yeah.
And that seemed to advance me that way.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
And they come at
it's
just
really
the right time.
Right.
You know,
okay.
when I need that awareness or, you know, just a check, hit the reset button, you know.
Yeah. So, man, it's been epic. It's been an epic conversation. It's been an hour and 19 minutes. So, like, what's next for you, brother? Like, just gonna keep chasing the dream.
Yeah.
Working, developing your retreat and your program.
Yeah.
And do you want to grow it and help as many people as you can, or like what's your main objective at the moment with it?
Launching the first program in September.
Yeah.
Just getting it off the ground organically and seeing where it goes. You know, like I mentioned earlier, my vision is to have these centers, you know, starting in the States, but possibly around the world, where people can go when there's no other options to get clean, you know, to get off the drugs and alcohol, and that's affordable or free. That's what I want, because I saw so much suffering when I went back and tried to get my dad into a place and
you felt the homeless rates were higher than you'd ever seen.
Yeah.
That's bizarre. 'Cause,
Totally.
I mean, I've been to California, and I remember going through some parts of San Diego, and we don't see homelessness in Australia like that.
Yeah.
You know, with these full-on tent cities just randomly built in alleyways, and like people living like
It's
really,
horrible.
really rough.
Really rough.
Which is such a contrast to that kind of like our, I guess, is it capitalist societies?
Yeah.
You know?
And it doesn't need to be that way.
Yeah.
I really believe that. It doesn't need to be that way.
Yeah. Nice, man. So, I think it's a good way to end.
It's
Is there anything else you want to say, though, bro?
It's just, you know, I'm honored you asked me to come on, and I'm very thankful.
Dude, I'm
for having
stoked
me.
to have you on, man.
Yeah.
Like, I just feel that, like, I'm really drawn to what you're doing with your retreat and program, and I just love the fact that, it's assisting with recovery from addiction, but it's also very much focused on promoting healthy lifestyle behaviors and tools that people can use for lifelong. So yoga, meditation, breathing. So I heard you mention that the breathing techniques were like around that Wim Hof breathing, which like I love. Like I'm a huge advocate for, because I've done it, and I cannot get over how much it balances out my emotions and hormones. It's bizarre, dude.
It's unbelievable.
And then you follow it up with an ice bath.
Yeah.
So if I'm feeling anxious or depressed about something, and it's getting a bit unmanageable, I do those breathing techniques, and then I have a cold shower, and it's like physiologically I feel better. Like I'm not talking mentally. I feel calm. I feel relaxed. It's like my nervous system, my central nervous system is getting like reset.
It's a game changer.
You know, and I already know, like these are tools that I can put in my toolbox and keep pulling out when life starts happening on life's terms, and starts throwing bullshit at me, which it will, which it does.
It's not going to stop.
I know, and that's what I like about it, as opposed to just the main focus on a 12-step recovery, which I feel like is super necessary. I don't doubt that at all, because I do feel that the 12-step recovery program is a portal to spirituality.
It's still number one for me.
Spirituality without religion.
Yeah.
But then then you need as many tools in your toolbox as you can get.
You
So
can go
if you-
further.
and then if you can go high five. And then if you nice, dude, I like it. Well played, dude. Well played.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you've got the more tools in your toolbox, man. Like yoga, meditation. Like, you know, I really hope I'm still doing yoga when till I'm dead, really.
Yeah.
You know, and meditation, I must admit, I've got to work on the meditation. Like, how are you at meditation? Like sitting with your mind for periods of time.
You know, I'll be super dedicated to it for a year straight, and then I'll fall off the wagon. You know, and it's like but I'm in a phase of diving back in. It's incredible when you have a good rhythm going with it. You know, like for example, I'll sit down and say I have anxiety. I'll set an intent with my meditation, and not all the time, but sometimes that anxiety will be completely lifted, and I'll have a feeling of bliss and peace fill my chest. How do you explain that?
It's self-created.
I don't know how to explain that, but that's what I get from meditation.
No way. Yeah, see, I've struggled with it. I've had to work at it and my yoga practice, but I'm finding that I get my best levels of meditation when I'm holding my breath.
Yeah.
It's bizarre.
Same.
That's when I can really meditate and quiet the mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not sustainable because I can only hold my breath for 3, and I've held my breath for 4 minutes one time. But
Nice.
But it's generally around 2 to 3 minutes, you know.
Yeah.
But then I find after I do a few rounds of breath holding, then I can sit with that quiet mind. But I feel like I need to really delve into it a lot deeper. And like you said, it's a practice, and it's progress, not perfection, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, nice, man. Well, dude, all right. It's been epic. It's now an hour and 26 minutes.
Okay.
And, dude, thanks for coming, and thanks for being on. And, man, look forward to spending many more years of hanging out and surfing. And who knows, maybe you can come back on the show some other time.
Yeah.
High five, brother. You're
Hopefully
a legend.
we get to trade some barrels soon.
Oh, dude, I wanted
Yeah.
to ask you, man. Sorry, one of my questions, sorry, because I know you get some epic waves, and I can't wait to post some of the waves you've had. But, dude, where's your, like, what's one of your best spots in Bali? Like, what's don't give away any secrets, but what's your favourite wave in Bali? Around Bali that's well known? I've got a feeling I know.
In Bali, it's temples.
I knew you were gonna say that, dude. You get so barreled out there.
Sorry to all the temples lovers out there.
I don't think it's a secret
It's
anymore.
in plain sight.
It's not
Yeah.
a secret. Yeah, but
Yeah, I
I
love
mean,
it.
I'm sorry, like to get a proper double up barrel out there, you know, not anyone's getting those. So
Yeah.
Okay. All right,
Yeah.
dude. Let's go.
Okay.
High five, man. Thanks,
Man.
brother.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Shannon.
See you, mate.